Welcome in, everybody, to episode 23 of Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? Celeste is showing you the 2-3. We love it. We love that the numbers are growing for my co-host, Celeste Gehring. I'm Amy G, and today's guest is Cherie Shoemake, and she's a trailblazer in her own right. She was one of only a handful of women who began officiating softball back in the 80s, and Cherie's career is definitely, Celeste, one of the most unique that we're going to get to hear about. So we're really, really excited. It's such an honor to be with her and for her to share her path and her insights as an umpire. I just think, ooh, the stories she could tell. I don't know if she'll share them, but I think about all those conversations that happen at the plate. So Cherie, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I do admit, though, I'm a little overwhelmed after looking at the podcast and seeing some of the guests that you've had.
Not at all.
Yeah, but I'm excited. I'm excited to be included. I think this is a very important topic. And so to be able to have a voice for it and a platform through you guys is fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
Well, we know you understand how to call strikes and balls, Cherie, but we want to know if you can handle our game off the top called Girl Gig Quick Pick, where we're going to do a little bit of trivia. And honestly, usually we do it on where the person's from. But we decided, since you're such an expert in softball, we're going to try to see how much you know, or if we can even stump you, or we'll all learn along together.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try.
Ready to play? Okay,
let's go.
Okay. All right. Your first question is going to be a true or false. Softball was first created in 1887 in Chicago by George Hancock.
Wow. That's very specific, so I'm going to say true.
Yeah. Way to go. Way to go.
Yeah.
All right. This is multiple choice, Cherie. So the fastest softball pitch ever recorded by Monica Abbott in 2012 was how many miles an hour? Here are your choices.
Okay.
A, 65.
Nope.
B, 73, C, 77, or D, 85?
I'm going to go with 77. I know it's in the 70s.
Yes.
Way to go.
Right.
Good job.
I actually watched her on TV quite a bit, so back in her day. So
great. All right.
Girl.
Another multiple choice for you.
Okay. I like multiple guesses. Those are good.
Okay. Who has the most softball national championships? A, Oklahoma, B, Arizona, C, UCLA, or D, Oklahoma State?
If I get this one wrong, it'd be really sad. UCLA.
Very good. Oh my gosh. 3 for 3. What?
I'm a UCLA fan, so.
Do you know how many?
11.
Ooh, good.
So
12.
close. 12.
12.
You're right there. That totally counts. I give her that. I wouldn't have a clue.
Bonus points.
All right. Last one of our game here. True or false? Oklahoma's Jocelyn Allo has hit the most career home runs in women's college softball with 122. True or false?
Okay. I know she held the record at one point. And I feel like someone beat her in that. But I'm going to say false. So I'm going to say false.
You were so close to 100%. You got to trust your gut, girl.
Yeah,
true.
I just felt like it's got to be, But I knew she held the record. I wasn't quite sure if she still had it or not. So
she does. And we, fun fact to share with you, she was also the first female signed by the Savannah Bananas this year, and we just interviewed their owner. So
excellent.
Their part in female empowerment. We were super excited. Yeah.
Super excited for the new league and with the Athletes Unlimited and what's happening with that. That's exciting.
It's very exciting time for women's sports. And we're very, very excited to have you because you are such a trailblazer.
Who dreads swimsuit shopping? We do, that's for sure, and that's why friend of our program, Denise Foley, created Sunset Vibes swimwear. If you want to look good, feel good, and wear a suit that fits perfectly, check out sunsetvibesswimwear.com. Most brands use generic rating to determine sizes, but Sunset Vibes swimwear took more than 2 years to fit test over 100 women from size 2 to size 26, ensuring every curve was considered and every body type fit to a T. Everything is sustainable, made in LA, and ladies, You deserve to feel amazing in swimwear. That's Sunset Vibes, VIBES swimwear.com. And the search for the perfect swimsuit is over.
We always like to start at the start, at the beginning, and ask, where did you grow up and what is your childhood experience, Cherie, with sports? Did you play?
So I was born and raised in Bakersfield, California. Lived here most of my life. Had a little stint in the coastal area, but most of my life been here. I grew up playing sports as far back as I can remember. I have a younger brother, and we were constantly doing something, whether it was riding bikes or throwing a ball with all the kids in the neighborhood. You know, I come from a time where you were not in the house hanging out. You were outside playing, and you got in trouble when you didn't make it home by the time the street light came on. And
Same.
so there was no video games. You know, we played sports. And so I started playing organized softball at the age of 9 and continued from there. Was, catcher very early on, and just continued to play. By the time I was in high school, I was playing 3 sports. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. Again, came from a time when, you know, you didn't just have one and you played that one sport year round, which is a sad thing for me that kids are now trapped into only playing one sport, especially girls.
Yep.
You know, playing those multiple sports is just so good for your body and you know, the buildup of muscle. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation about injury. And I have
Burnout.
that word. Burnout. Oh,
burnout.
absolutely. Burnout for sure.
Yep.
And so, played all the way through high school and got into officiating actually during high school. And I've done some coaching at the high school level. So, active watcher on TV, whether it's pretty much any sport. The other day we were watching cornhole. So, yeah. So,
I love that.
I love that. Well, like you said, you started officiating at such a young age, 16.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How did you get into it at that age and why?
So it's a crazy story. I was 16 years old. My best friend and I had aged out of playing bobby socks, something that we had played for years. Her mom was on the board of directors. And she came to me and said, hey, my mom said that we can umpire now that we're too old to play. And although I knew what an umpire was, I really didn't understand necessarily what that entailed. All I knew was that somebody was going to pay me money so I could still go to the field every day and be a part of the game and hang out. We made $7 behind the plate and $5 on the bases and got a free soda after the game. And I said, sure, let's do it.
Right.
Yeah, let's do it. And so she's still a very close friend of mine to this day. And she lasted 2 seasons, and 44 years later, I'm still on the field. So having worked it from there. So it was just something that I fell into. And I'm so blessed that happened for numerous reasons, which I'm sure as we go along, we'll talk more about. But it sucked me in from day one. I just loved it. I loved being able to be a part of the game in a whole different way, interacting with all of the coaches, and I'm umpiring everything from 6-year-olds to 15-year-olds, and just seeing these kids excel, being 6 years old and getting on base for the very first time or hitting the ball for the very first time. It just really caught my heart, and I love kids. I have 13 nieces and nephews. And so I love to see what they do and how they excel and to be a part of their lives, no matter what it is. And so it was just such a great way for me to continue to be a part of it. And allowed me, once I got out of high school, to go to college, and continue to umpire and work my schedule around being able to umpire, which I started doing high school a year after I graduated. And then just to continue to excel from there. So.
What's funny is my brother, who's 4 years older than me. I mean, I spent my entire childhood at the Little League field watching him play because he was 5 years older. So he started at 9 and I was 4. And then that transitioned as he went up in baseball and left that Little League field and played senior ball. He worked the games, and he would line the fields and he would umpire, and they could call the games in the booth. They had a little broadcast booth, but not once did I ever see a girl doing it.
Yeah.
And I never thought I could do it. It was very much, compartmentalized as a boy's job. It was always boys that were doing it. And I wish I would have known you then. And he made a lot of money. Like, it was good money. Even though you had to deal with the hecklers, and they heckle you even in Little League. So, because he was like 13,
Yes.
So, okay. So let's talk about what you saw, in this position. Did you see other women doing this? Did you have mentors? And then at what point? I'm a master of asking 8,000 questions at once.
No, I like it.
Sorry.
I like it.
But okay. So did you see women? Did you have mentors, men or women? And then when did you say, this could be a career?
So when I first started out doing Bobby Sox, it was just my friend and I that were the only two females that were umpiring, and the umpire in chief was a man, and but that's never really bothered me. Just looking back, my first career job was working for Big Five Sporting Goods in sporting retail. It's all men. You go to meetings and you're the only female, so it's always been something that I've dealt with in most of my careers. So that was never really a factor for me. I was selected after my second year. I was selected by our local association to work the national tournament, which was held in Buena Park. So I got to work regionals, which was the Central Valley of California. And then they had a national tournament every year. And so I was invited to go to that. And that was, I think, the first time when I really came across, when I say a handful, I'm talking literally, 2 or 3 other female officials out of probably 40 of us, 45 of us. But it was really the first time that I saw other female officials and had an opportunity to work with other female officials was going to that national tournament in Buena Park in Southern California. But that never, like I said, that wasn't a factor for me. To me, it was just something that I had a passion for and I enjoyed it. I enjoy working with men. I don't have an issue with that. It wasn't until I got older and maybe understood a little bit and the light bulb came on in my head that maybe this needs to change. Maybe it needs to be a little bit different. And I think that's just a maturity thing and societal changes, right? That's, I think, probably been the biggest thing that has happened, is that more people seeing, hey, women can do these things too. Women can officiate in the NFL. Women can officiate baseball, whatever the sport is. But as far as local mentors, when I started doing high school, I joined our local association, which is called the Kern County Officials Association. So to officiate high school sports, you have to attend class, pass exams. And we had 3 gentlemen that were teaching the class at the time. And all of them, luckily, were already working at the collegiate level. And so they took me under their wing, and I could not have gotten, to the D1 level and been able to do the things that I did without the 3 of them supporting me and teaching me, opening doors for me here in California. And I'll be eternally grateful to them for what they did. And they never looked at me as, oh, you're a female umpire. I think it was for them important that I was, because it was a female sport and they wanted to promote the growth of female officials. But I was a good umpire and I was willing to learn and I was willing to listen. And I think that's what was most important to them. They weren't going to put their necks on the line for somebody that wasn't, willing to do the job. But like I said, I will be eternally grateful to Mike and Dennis for what they did for me to help me move up the levels and give me the confidence that I could do higher levels, that I could do college ball. And, I was here locally here in Kern County. We have Cal State University Bakersfield. We have 2 junior colleges. And so we had opportunities here locally where I didn't have to travel, that I could work at the collegiate level, be seen by other UICs, be seen by other coaches. We had a big tournament here that was hosted by Cal State University Bakersfield that brought in teams as far away as Hawaii. And so I was able to be seen by other coaches and because those gentlemen worked at the collegiate level, they had worked with other umpires throughout the United States. And so they would bring in other umpires, including a couple of female umpires, a couple from Arizona, one from Southern California. And so that was really the first time I feel like I got to be around other female officials that were working up at the higher levels. And I learned so much from them, seeing them work. And again, more than anything, I think it was just the confidence that it didn't matter what my gender was. What mattered was how good I was and how hard I worked on it.
Yeah. You were good at your job.
Be good. Yeah.
During that time, though, did you have any women or young girls come up to you and ask you about the profession or generate interest and want to know more about it?
I've had two during Bobby Sox times that they played Bobby Sox, and when they aged out, they were like, we want to be just like you. We want to be an umpire just like you. And I which was very flattering. I mean, they only did it for a couple of years, but just the fact that they saw that girls could do it was important for me. So that was really nice to have them do that. But, since then, I get nothing but pushback, and, we can go into the reasons for all of that. I talked about, what I've done as far as recruiting and what the responses I get. But at that time, it just wasn't something girls did, right? It just wasn't anything. And I think it was more of they wanted to be like me. I was older, and, sometimes you meet people who are older and you're like, oh, I want to do that. And I think that's more what it was. And we did have one other female in our local association here who also worked college games, Sally Ullman. And she had connections, and Sally was also a part of that group that helped open doors for me to get to the level that I did. So I was just very lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and in a place where we had support and we had access to being able to do games and have the right partners and be able to be seen. So,
well, people listening and watching this, there might be some young girls that do say, I want to do what she's doing. So can you break down in layman's terms, Cherie, how does one become an umpire?
So my recommendation is find out where your local youth leagues are, whether they're run by your, YMCA, or they're just a Bobby Sox league, or we have here locally, it's a girls league that is run by a local board. Every organization on the face of the earth is looking for officials. It doesn't matter what sport. It doesn't matter geography. Everyone is looking for officials, male or female. So, find your local youth organization, start out working youth games. That's the best place that you can go to really get your feet wet and get into it and find a passion for it. It's such a great training ground because you never know what's going to happen. And the craziest plays are going to come up where you really do have to think through and apply the rules. And then most areas have local high school organizations. So if you are a little older and you want to get into working high school games, again, we're in the same boat in terms of needing officials. We used to have about 45 softball umpires when I started in our local area, with about 8 less high schools. And this year we finished the season with 21 umpires. That's how much it's changed over the years. So that, find your local contacts. Organizations are constantly advertising for the needing of officials. I also noticed that we went to the UCLA regional just a month ago, and on the big screen they played an ad about the NC2A is partnering with NASO, which is the National Association of Sports Officials, and they are the ones that publish Referee Magazine. And there was an actual ad talking about the need for officials and to contact, with some contact information to find out more about officiating in your local area. So there is some partnerships out there. Like I said, NC2A is getting involved, which is great to see. And then again, you can go online and go to the NASO website for some direction as well, as most local organizations and associations are registered with NASO.
Good info. Wow.
Yeah. You're literally one of the female officials as a pioneer. And we want to talk a little bit about like what have been a lot of your challenges and what's been your greatest accomplishment?
I think the challenges came as I got a little bit older, and being a female, because it was dominated by male coaches. There at that point, players had not started coming back and getting into coaching. Even coaching was male dominated, and so being a female officials in my late 20s and male coaches in their 40s and 50s. I think that is probably the one time I felt that pushback of being a female, as I would have some comments made here or there about, being my age and then also being a female. I remember one time I was officiating men's league here in Bakersfield. And I was behind the plate, so I had all my gear on, and I keep my hair short, and I'm umpiring, and I did my first strike call, and there were two little boys behind the backstop, and one of them said to the other one, "Dude, that's a girl," and I sure remember laughing because it was just so unexpected. They're not used to seeing female umpires, and that was probably the early '90s. But I just thought it was funny that, dude, that's a girl. And that just sticks with me my whole life is, those two little boys. But there was definitely some challenges. And then as more of the coaches became females who were coming back after playing locally and coaching at their high school or coming back to their local colleges, they appreciate having the female officials. And they saw the advancement of more and more females and seeing that they're out there and they know what they're talking about and they've played the game, which is very important. That's a knowledge that when we get new officials, it's like, well, have you ever played baseball? Have you ever played softball? No. And it's hard to teach when they don't even have a basic understanding of the game when you're then taking it to the officiating perspective. So I did have some of that back in the day, but I never felt I got it from my partners or, our local association. A lot of it came from male coaches, especially ones that had never seen me officiate before. And the crazy part is that sometimes I'll help out and do JV games just because we're so shorthanded. So, the high school games, I'll go down and do a JV game. It's about the kids. It's not about me. I don't care what level I work. I just want to make sure that these kids are able to play. And I'll come across male coaches who've never seen me before. And they start to take that male attitude with me, or they'll start to make comments. And I was like, I've been officiating longer than you've been alive. So let's just get that out there right now. You kind of have to put them in their place sometimes when it comes to that. But I haven't had any huge issues. Luckily for as long as I've been doing it, I'm known by a lot of folks in the community. And so that really seems to help me in that regard. I guess my being selected so early on to work the national tournament for Bobby Sox was certainly a highlight in my career. And I got to work the first ever state playoff game here locally. There used to not be state playoffs for softball. They only had it for the boys sports. And so in the last 3 years, they've been adding in 3 and 4 years. Basketball came first, and then volleyball. And then slowly they've been adding in more sports. And so recently softball was added in. And I was selected from our association to get to work the state playoffs.
But I'm again here. Every podcast this happens, right? But just a couple of comments. One, I'm not surprised at all about the pushback from the male coaches, especially in the time frame that you're talking about. Do you remember, Celeste? Our very first guest was Heather Burns. She's an editor for the NFL Nation at ESPN, but she started as a beat writer. and she shared about covering, I think it was a college beat, and the coach was like, I can't talk to you. You're a female.
Yeah.
And he had a daughter. And I think her response was, how would your daughter feel about that? But it was just like, out of place for him that a female was asking him these questions. And the other statement I just want to make before my question is, if people today say, we haven't made any progress, talk to Cherie.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I
Yes,
have this
for sure.
conversation with my dad all the time about the expectation of progress and the speed at which we want it to come. And
Mhm.
it's never going to go as fast as we want it to. But if you just go back, 35 years and look at what Cherie was facing versus where we are today, where I'm at a River Cats game, I'm in the booth as a color analyst. We didn't see that. And there's a female umpire behind the plate.
Yeah.
So it's, there's definitely been progress. My question, because I thought it was really interesting how you said people will say, did you play? And the importance of playing the sport versus just knowing about the sport.
Correct.
I want to know how you, as a position player, as a catcher, how that helped you as an umpire.
Well, I think just not being afraid of the ball, knowing, not to turn your head. It's just those little things, right? When you're a catcher, you never turn your head, you block the ball. Your face mask covers your head, your face, not the side of your head. So I didn't have those issues of, being afraid of the ball, and when the ball's in the dirt, turning, I'd already learned the technique of shrugging my shoulders and pulling my head down, and which keeps my head facing forward so that I don't miss the pitch. It was just those little things that made a difference, I think, for me.
Did you feel like, I always feel the catchers, usually, stereotypically, I guess, the most knowledgeable player on the field. They have to call the pitches. They have to see the whole field. They have to know all the rules. I just wouldn't know if that played a role in you umpiring or your love of the game, because the catcher really sees the whole game as the umpire does.
I don't know that necessarily for me played a role. I think it's just the love of the game and wanting to continue to be involved in it, and knowing that this was the one way that I could do it. I mean, I was an average athlete. I played 3 sports, but I wasn't the superstar on the team. I was never going to go on and play in college. And to be able to find a way to continue to be involved in a game that I love. And, early on when I'm poor and eating ramen every day and make a little bit of money, because I could umpire in the summer. I did, Little League games. I did men's games. I did during the high school season, and luckily eventually moved up to doing college games. That was extra money in my pocket, and it was something that I could do and go to school at the same time. And there's not many opportunities that you have to do that at my time. I started working part-time for Big Five Sporting Goods in 1983, and I made $3.10 an hour. And working 12 hours a week part-time, that wasn't going to feed me.
Pay your rent, all of it.
Yeah. So to be able to do this and love it on top of that, was just, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I just still look back these days and think, man, I cannot thank Mrs. Gooden enough for, telling Robin and I, my friend, hey, you guys want to umpire? Because it really changed everything for me.
She was so forward thinking. That's fantastic.
It just changed everything. And, my friend Robin, she was a fantastic 3-sport athlete. She actually played for Cal State Fullerton and was on the 1986 national championship team, the only national championship that Fullerton has ever won. That was her senior year. And so, that's why I think she lasted 2 seasons, because she had bigger and better things to do. But it was, she got to stay involved in the game, but so did I.
You have worked the full gambit of, from junior college to Division I to Division II. Are there a lot of differences in the level of competition and challenges in officiating those different divisions?
Absolutely. Just the level of play. I mean, we talked earlier about Monica Abbott throwing 77 miles an hour. You know, you see these young ladies now that the screwballs that they throw and how much it drops off the plate and how they throw on different planes. You know, when back in the day when I first started and you were doing high school, they had a drop and a rise. there weren't any,
Right.
you know, there weren't any curveballs.
Yep.
It either went up or it went down.
Yep.
And as you went up in levels, you know, then you got curveballs and you got changeups and just the abilities of the catchers and the pace of play is so much faster. The runners are faster and just the attention to detail has to be there. The level of concentration has to go up. I mean, you're working a high school game and, you know, in the third inning, it's 14-2. And there's, you know, already been 12 walks. It's tough sometimes to keep that level of concentration. And so you can let your mind wander a little bit here or there. But when you work your way up and you're working the D1 levels, I mean, those coaches know even the umpires' responsibilities, what umpire is responsible for what. They know where you're supposed to be. They know umpire mechanics. And if you're not in the right place to make a call, they know you're not. And so just, you know, the level of knowledge of the mechanics, as much as the level of knowledge of the rules, gets greater and greater and greater as you go up, because they'll call you on it. You know, you weren't in a position to make that call. You're absolutely right. I wasn't. You know, what are you going to say? And many of them are involved in writing the rule book. You know, Kathy Welter was the longtime coach of Cal State University Bakersfield. And you knew when Coach Welter called time to come out and talk to you that you missed the call because she never came on the field over a judgment call. It was because you're not allowed to argue judgment calls. And so if Coach Welter came on the field, you knew you missed something. And it had happened to me. And she was on the committee that helped write the rule book when the NC2A switched over to their own rule book. You know, she was part of that. And so you have to have that respect for these coaches that they know what they're talking about. Yeah. So when you're dealing with high school games, you're dealing with educating coaches on the rules because many of them never even get a rule book. And then as you work up and now you're dealing with these D1 coaches who helped write the rule book. So it's certainly a different level in many aspects, not just what's going on the field.
Oh my gosh, we had like a random dad fill in for our high school softball team because we didn't have enough coaches. And it's so funny, the progression in pitching, because when I started playing, I pitched a little, you know, and it was like I can't even do it because I don't have enough room in here, but you would like start over here and you just do like some kind of move and then it was underhand. And then by the time like junior high, early high school, we were doing the windmill. And like, that was like this big, you know, deal that we had more speed on our pitches. I want to know a random though. I want to know two randoms. I want to know your worst injury as an umpire, like what if you got hit or whatever, because I'm weird like that. And I want to know like the craziest play you've ever had to call.
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things as far as the injury one, because one is kind of funny and I'm going to name drop a name that everyone's going to know. Okay. So the worst injury, though, was I lost a fingernail. I got hit by a pitch. Catcher never even put any leather on it. And so your indicator's in your left hand. And so the ball and my metal indicator, my finger was in between and just annihilated my nail and lost my nail. And I went another high school game. I took a foul ball off of my one bicep and I took a direct pitch off of the other bicep, both by the same high school. That coach I'm good friends with, so I love to tease her about that all the time. The funniest one, though, was Megan Langenfeld from UCLA. Is from Bakersfield and played at Centennial High School. And I believe it was her senior year. It's a playoff game, so the news media is there. And behind the plate, she probably one of the hardest throwers we've ever had here locally. Throws pitch. It's a foul ball. It hits me square in the mask. It pushes me back. and I'm on my heels and I'm trying to backpedal and catch my balance. And I just boom right on my behind home plate. What is the very first thing that our local news media puts on the news that night is the umpire taking a fall. But my claim to fame with Megan is she's the only pitcher that ever knocked me on my booty. So, so that's my funny one.
I like it.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So as far as crazy, I mean, you like I said earlier, you work JV games or youth games, just about anything can happen. The ball's being thrown around and runners think that they're supposed to go back and tag up. And probably the one instance where it causes the most confusion is when you have an infield fly rule call and the ball's not caught. Most runners don't realize they don't have to run.
Right.
And they take off running, and then the coach is yelling, "No, you don't have to run, go back." And so you've got, base runners running all over the place, and they're throwing the ball because they think that they can get the girl out over here, but she's entitled to that base. And so I've had a few of those in my day.
Total mayhem.
I had actually something happen this year I'd never had happen before. I was a pitch that went behind the girl, and she didn't drop her bat. It hit off of her bat and actually went fair. I've had it happen lots of times where it hit the bat and went foul, but the ball actually hit the ball and rolled fair out in front of home plate, which is a fair ball.
Yeah.
I've never had that one happen. So
did it hit the knob of the bat?
No, it hit the top part of the bat. It was behind her head.
Usually it goes foul.
Crazy. Yeah. She kind of turned, and when she did, the bat stuck up even more. And
you're like, you better run, girl.
I know. So of course the coach is yelling, "Run, run, run, run!" And she's standing there, and so that was kind of interesting. So every time you think you've seen it all, we talked about that in class too. You get people say, "Well, that's never going to happen," and then all the veterans in class laugh, because every time you say that, it's going to happen. So
yeah, that's great.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit because I played basketball. And you were a basketball referee for 8 years. Why did you switch over to it? And what were the main differences between like basketball and softball? Were you one of the few women? Were you one of the many? What were the changes like?
So there were actually more women in basketball than there were in softball. I had been, a member of the Kern County Officials Association since 1983. At one point, the football guys wanted me to come and learn to do football and be our first ever female football official. But, I was, again, in college, or I was trying to just make a living. And I had already started working full time for Big Five, and it just wasn't feasible at the time. And, the amount of effort and time that I would have want to put into it. But I played basketball. I coached basketball. I love the sport. It's probably my, right there with softball. It's something that I'd always wanted to do, and I finally had a job that would allow me to do it. I knew many of the people in the the basketball unit, and it was just an opportunity to go and do something new. I loved it. I loved the running part, which I didn't think that I would, but just it got you in shape. It was fast. There's a time clock, so for the most part, the games last a certain amount of time. In softball, my record is 27 innings of 5.5 hours. So there is no timetable. You never know how long a game is going to take. That 27 inning game was a 2-1 ball game. So I did like the finality of basketball and having the clock. I like the fact that I could get ready for a game in about 2 minutes because all I had to do was put my pants, my shirt, my shoes, and my whistle on. Where if I'm doing a softball game, putting all that gear on and putting your metal plate shoes on, and it takes a while to get dressed and undressed. So that was kind of one of the things I had not anticipated, was just the gear situation. So I did that for about 8 years, but it got really hard on my knees and my hips. And my goal is to officiate a minimum of 50 years of softball. And I didn't want basketball to take away from my goal of the number of years of softball that I wanted to work. And so I decided that it was time to just concentrate. I retired in February, and so I am hoping to start doing volleyball for the first time this year, starting in August. So
it's my
yeah,
sport.
so I'm gonna I coach volleyball as well, so I'm gonna try to add another sport, and something I've always wanted to do, but it was just always at my busiest time with my work, and so it wasn't possible. But so this year, that's something new. That even at I turned 60 in February, so even at 60, I'm excited to jump in and be involved in a new sport and put myself out there. So,
You better
but
be ready.
I have a new gig that I actually have fallen into, and it is due to my officiating. I would have never had the opportunity had I not been an official. But I'm announcing now for our junior college.
Yeah.
And so, had I not been an umpire, had I not known Coach Taylor from Bakersfield College, she and I became friends when she moved here 30 plus years ago. And about 12 years ago, they were hosting the state tournament for junior college state championships. And she said, "Hey, how'd you like to come and be the press box announcer?" We had a guy do it last year, and he was okay. He goes, "But we, as coaches, have talked about it and thought, how cool would it be to have a female announcer at a female championships?" And my family says I've never met a microphone that I don't like. So I was like, sure, let's do it. And so I've done, I think, 9 of the last 12 years, I've been the announcer for the state tournament for junior college softball. And so then last year I started as the press box announcer for Bakersfield College. And I'm hoping to get to do some other sports on the campus as well, even some of the men's sports. So I'm excited that that's leading into being able to stay involved in youth athletics in a completely different way.
Can we just point out that Cherie said she turned 60 in February and she continues to add to her resume? Like you're never really done growing and learning. It's fantastic. But I will tell you, Cherie, if you're going to ref volleyball, you come to Petaluma, you better be ready for me as a parent in the stands. I get so pissed off at when it's an obvious call. And then here's the one that really gets me. So you coach volleyball, so you understand this. You have lines people.
Yeah.
They do not pay attention.
Yes.
It's the girls from the other team. They don't pay attention. They're like, my boyfriend's in the stands. And then they're like, oh, I think it was out. And it was like clearly, the hair. Yeah. And they've got like, their little shorts on and their shirt goes way over it. And then I'm like, and then the ref goes with that call. And I'm like, are you watching? It was in my 5 feet. She's on her phone. Like, so
I feel you.
I'll put that out there. Okay. So I love that you're announced. That's fantastic. But also let's go back because you've mentioned a few times being part of the Kern County Officials Association, and you were the only woman to serve as president of that. Why do you think in general, more women haven't gotten involved in softball officiating?
So what I find when I talk to groups of women, I talk to high school kids that I know that are seniors. And I'll say, "Hey, are you going to play? Where are you going to play next year?" "Oh, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to focus on school." And I'll say, "Well, have you ever thought about maybe officiating?" "Oh, no. It's an immediate no. It's not a, well, what does that mean? Or can you tell me more about it?" It's immediate no. And the number one thing that comes out of every single person's mouth is, "I don't want to be yelled at." It's gotten so bad. It's so funny because you just talked about being a parent. It's gotten so bad.
I'm part of the problem.
It's okay. But it's gotten so bad from the coaches and the parents. They think that every kid is playing in the World Series of whatever sport it is. I mean, I'm working a frost-off softball game, and it's like, it's the world's coming to an end about a call at first base, right. It's the number one thing. I don't want to be yelled at. And it's sad. And we had to have that conversation with all of our coaches this year. I helped teach our local class. And so I was part of the meeting where we meet with all the varsity coaches at the beginning of the season. And we just told them, our numbers issue. And we told them that the number one reason that we lose people is they say, "This is not worth it. The way that I'm treated is not worth it." And having to remind them as varsity coaches that they're responsible for their entire programs. They're not just responsible for what they do with their varsity team and on their field. They're responsible for the behavior of their Frostoff coach and their JV coach and of all of their parents. And that is the biggest barrier I find in trying to recruit anyone, much less females, right? Is, oh, no, I don't want to be treated like that. I'll coach or I'll watch but I don't want to be yelled at. And that's a couple of things. I think that's generational, right? Looking at the younger generation, they have a hard time. I'm speaking from experience because I do have nephews, from other younger generations than me, and I know how they respond. And so that having a hard time with criticism or being yelled at is one. Two, for some folks, it's availability. Games start, for softball and baseball start at 4:00 in the afternoon, sometimes earlier. And if you have a full-time job, you can't get off early enough. One thing I always find really interesting, because I've been around for so long, is when I started with the Kern County Officials Association, and this is all sports, we have 7 sports. I would say 75% of our association members worked in education. So they taught school, they were administrator, and so they would get off at 3:00 and they stayed involved in athletics by being officials. Now, I don't even think, we have 2 members of the Softball Association that work in education. And many of my friends work in education, and what they tell me is that teachers now are like, hey, my job is until 3:00, and the second that it hits 3, I'm getting off this campus. It's like they just can't fathom doing anything above and beyond where they have to be around students anymore. And so we've lost a big pool of people that used to go on and become officials. So
I was going to say the irony in this, that when you're asking women if they want to get involved and they say, no, I don't want to get yelled at, they are finding their voice in that. I know I don't want to be treated this way. I don't want to feel this way, which is progress to a degree, that we're finding a voice and realizing. Celeste and I are always talking about, when you find out what you don't want to do, that's empowering as well. But to your point, Cherie, it's like, how sad that the environment for sports has become so volatile that that's the reason why, it's just, it's very ironic.
I even talked to all the young ladies that played for Bakersfield College this last year. They're all 18, 19, 20 years old, and brought it up to them several of times. And man, they cannot get away from that conversation fast enough. It's like, no way. I would never, ever, ever do that. I'm like, well, what about another sport? Have you nope. And here's something that I find interesting, though. So I talked earlier about how when we were at the UCLA Regional, they played the video from the NC2A cooperation with NASA about recruiting officials. But that I watched the College World Series, and you can hear the crowd. And in some of the games, the things that were being said to the officials from members of the crowd that you could pick up over the television were just horrible. So NC2A is over here saying, hey, we want to help recruit officials. Then why are you allowing the crowds to talk to the officials the way that you are? I understand that you're at the College World Series, and that's a little different level. However, there's kids sitting in the stands listening to people talk to the officials. And then the kids start talking to the officials that way. And then they go on to play later on, and they're in high school. And then I came this close to kicking a freshman out in a varsity game this year because she mouthed off to me. It's like, that's not your role.
Right.
And part of this also comes to you from the whole travel ball and the whole, playing year round travel ball, because there are no restrictions on the way that people talk to officials during travel ball. And they come to high school games and they think that they can do the same thing. And there are rules when it comes to being involved in high school athletics. I mean, there's an administrator on site. There are people removed all the time for their behavior. You're now on the high school campus at an extracurricular activity. And so I just found it really ironic for the NC2A to be doing this, but then over here on the other hand, you're allowing this behavior.
Right. You have to address both, really. And as I don't know about the collegiate level, actually, I can only speak to professional level, MLB and minor leagues. Alcohol plays a role. And so it's not supposed to be on a high school campus, although I think there's some thermoses that might have something other than water in it in the stands. Not speaking from experience at all. But yeah, I mean, it's really smart to bring the spotlight onto that issue. Like, how are they going to solve that problem? And it's learned behavior. It's learned behavior.
Exactly. But do we, and I, Amy, chime in on this, but do we really think that it's been amplified? I mean, I understand the travel teams, but I know when I played, there were parents that were like in the referees' faces and they were yelling and screaming at them. Like, do we think it's changed so much because social media is documenting it now? Or has it really changed in the fact that, as we age and stuff, like, oh, it wasn't really that bad back then. It's so much worse now. Like, is it really that much worse now?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And what I'll add to that, the biggest change I've seen is the singular sport. So when we played, I played volleyball, basketball, softball, and I had a season. And so you could never get so ingrained in a sport that your parents ever thought you were going to go anywhere with. I don't think my parents had any aspirations of me playing beyond high school at all. And now, like Cherie was talking about, like, a little league game is the World Series, and my I'm making my kid bat, left and right. I'm going to create a switch hitter out of him or her. I mean, the intensity of the family unit on that one sport, and it's so much money. And I'm part of the problem. I've said this, my daughter plays travel volleyball, but I've always, because I played, have really tried to stay out of the coach's way for sure. Like, whatever it is, who you get, and we're just going to deal with that and finish out the season. But I do think it's worse, Celeste, from what you were mentioning, social media. And then personally, my opinion is that focus on one sport just intensifies it. And you have money invested in it, thousands and thousands of dollars over the years that they're expecting to get back in a full ride college scholarship or a major league contract. And what is the percentage of that?
Well, Celeste, you made an interesting point. And I hadn't thought about mentioning this earlier, is we have had a handful of umpires who have said, I don't want to be on Facebook. I just don't want to be that, because I get people who come up to me all the time or tag me in an umpire that got posted on Facebook because they made a ridiculous call. And then there's thousands of comments, personal attacks about this human being because of some call they made in a 12U softball game somewhere. And now this umpire has been put out there and people now are posting their name. And so we've had, people say, look, I don't want to be on Facebook because I made some call. And so that is part of the problem, but it's not the only thing that has made the behavior worse. The behavior has just progressively gotten worse. We're all fine with, hey, Blue, you missed that one, or that's going to happen, and that's part of the game. I do that. I go to a Dodger game, I'm the first one, hey, Blue, come on, my favorite line, you got to call it both ways.
That sounds like a typical obnoxious Dodgers fan to me.
I know, exactly.
Giants fans are just so kind.
I know, because when we went to see a Giants game or the Giants play up there, of course we wore our Dodgers sweatshirts, and there was not a single person who made fun of us or gave us a hard time. The whole time we were there, we were embraced with open arms.
Orange and black, they just love everyone.
Oh
my gosh, that's so funny.
It's that kind of heckling is fine, but when it gets personal, one of the things that when you're teaching new umpires, and it's like, well, how much do you take from a coach? And really the word that you're listening for is you. As soon as the coach throws out the word you, now we're headed down a path that's going to need to be addressed. Because now they've turned it into not a question about the call. Hey, was that ball bobbled? Did she pull her foot? Now you're talking and pointing that directly at the human being. And so that's something that it's hard to teach, but it's something that's really helped us, I think, over the years get better about where's that line.
That's an indicator when they say that. I know we have to start getting to the wrap up, and I'm throwing in another question that wasn't on our list, but I just did a keynote speech yesterday, and I used my experience covering the Giants, and I used this video of Bruce Bochy coming out of the dugout, walking all the way across the field. And he's huge. He's a huge human being with literally the largest head in Major League Baseball.
Really?
Like, no joke.
It doesn't look, we're playing the Rangers right now. I just saw him on TV last night. And I wouldn't
so
have
look at his head and know that they could fit a 6-pack of beer into his helmet. That's how big he is the biggest head in Major League Baseball.
That's
and
all
so
I'm
this
gonna think
video,
tonight.
his big head. And he's coming out to this guy and he takes off his hat and he is over him just no. How many encounters have you had like that? How many people have you had to toss? I really want to know.
I've had a handful of encounters. I've tossed one coach, and I've tossed
in 44 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I probably take a lot more than I should, but for me, it's always about the kids.
Yeah.
You're in front of a
different audience. You're in front of a different audience.
Yeah.
But Boach just offered his glasses to an umpire the other day. Yeah. He offered his glasses. And I was like, I don't think that's going to go over well, Boach.
No, that wouldn't go over well.
Yeah, you're at a different level.
Yeah, it's again, I probably should have tossed more in my career, but I worked hard to not be that person. I work with several officials who are that person, and I don't want to be that ever. But just this last 2 seasons ago was the first time I tossed a coach, and it wasn't even my call. He was mad at my partner for a call at first base, and he kept coming out of the dugout, and I just kept saying, "You're making it worse. Please don't make it any worse. You're making it worse." It restricted it in high school sports. You can restrict them to the dugout because we, in soccer you have a yellow card and a red card. Well, in softball, we only had you're either there or you're not. And so about 15, 20 years ago, they added restriction to the dugout as a middle ground punishment.
Okay.
And I'd already restricted him to the dugout, and he came out again, and he left me no choice at that point. And then I've thrown 2 kids for malicious contact, and I threw one kid for unsportsmanlike conduct. I had asked her numerous times to take care of something, and she kept just defying me and basically looking straight at me. And so I sat her down for unsportsmanlike conduct. But
I love the move.
Yeah. So, I just, again, like I said, I've worked hard not to be that person. I drive my friend Sandy crazy with softball umpire sayings. And one of the things that I always told her was, look, if you're miserable with the umpire, the last thing that we want to do is kick you out and let you get out of the situation. If you're that miserable with me, I'm okay with it. I'm going to put up with you. I'm just going to make you stay there and be miserable for the entire game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
We have that power.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I want to get this personal note in before we start to wrap up. And you are a cancer survivor. We celebrate you for being 30 years cancer-free. Oh, yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think sports played a role in your recovery, that mindset, that resiliency, and how sports helped you?
Absolutely. 100%. I knew I needed to get back on that officiating field. I wanted to, because I got diagnosed March 30th. So I had worked about 6 weeks of the season. Yeah. I had worked 6 weeks of the season when I got diagnosed. And I've had, over that 30 years, some reconstructive surgeries and things that have put me off the field. And I do everything I can to get back on that field. If you tell me this is what I have to do to get well, I'm going to do it. I had shoulder surgery in September. This year I worked almost all bases because I couldn't be behind the plate. That's okay, but I got to stay on the field. And so going through that, I continually went and watched Bakersfield College play. This gives me one more opportunity to name drop.
Do it.
Because I think this is, I love, because people are always like, really, that happened? It was 1994. It was the last year. Oh my gosh, I'm going to draw a name blank. But it was the state tournament, and it was the last year before Coach left to go to Oklahoma. Help me. I got it. The coach for Oklahoma.
Oh, for Oklahoma? Oh, I don't know.
Gosh darn it. It was just in my head. It's just in my head too.
Help me. We can't.
Oh, darn. Anyway, she was coaching at Long Beach City College, and they got beat by a huge underdog. And that was the next year. So I actually got to umpire games for her, and she left in 95 and started the program at Oklahoma, and it's turned it into what she has turned it into today. But she came from California and coached at the junior college ranks. And to be able to say, Patty Gasso, I knew it would come to me, to say, hey, I got to work Patty Gasso's games back in the day, and now see her to the level that she is. But that was the year that I was going through all my best breast cancer treatment. And stuff, was sitting and watching on the sidelines and not being able to be involved in the season, in most of the season. It meant everything to me that I was going to get well, because come that next season, I was going to be back on that field. And so that was definitely a driver for me, because this is just such a part of who I am. And I think to be a good official, it has to be part of who you are. Mm-hmm. You have to make it part of who you are. You can't just walk on the field and turn it on and then turn it off. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to live it. And it's like anything that we do well, right? That's what you guys do. You guys do a great job at this. And you can tell you have a passion for it. The preparation that you put in. You have to do the same thing when you're officiating. And so I live and breathe it, and it's what I love. And it has led me to so many other opportunities, and led me to an opportunity to meet so many other people I would not have gotten the chance. Mm-hmm. That I wasn't going to let a cancer diagnosis stop me from all of that. So that was a fantastic question, and thank you for asking me about that.
We're so glad you're still with us, and you're on the way to 50 years doing this. So you're going to nail it. I love how sports is so much more than what happens on the field. And, so many times people have come up to me, Cherie, for, Giants fans, obviously, but my dad was sick during the 2012 World Series run and watched every single game, and that's what got him through. And I mean, it is its own source of medicine for a lot of people, and can be very healing. I know we're over time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, we could talk to you forever. It's not you, it's us. We just keep asking you questions. I keep peppering you with ones that aren't on our list too. But just your overall best piece of advice for those who would want to work in some type of officiating, or who just need advice for life.
I think it's what we just talked about. Be passionate about it. Mm-hmm. Take the time to learn the craft. Do it for the right reasons, because taking officiating specifically, if you're just coming out there for the money, you're not going to be good at it, because you're not doing it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. Do it because you love the sport. Do it because you want to help the kids, especially if you're doing it, say, at the high school level or even at the collegiate level. Many of these kids have scholarships, and it is their livelihood. Yes. It is a job to them. And if you're not giving them 100% of what you have, then don't do it. And I think that can apply to anything. It can't always be about the money. And I think that's where we lose some of our officials, is they get out there and they realize, I am not doing this for the right reasons.
Yeah.
The other thing I would like to say, kind of based on what we talked about earlier, is I know the first thing that everyone sees is getting yelled at, because that's the part that we remember. What I want people to know is there is so much more to officiating than just what happens on the field for that 2 hours. Mm-hmm. The friendships that I have made over these last 43 years, the opportunities that I've been provided because I had a chance to do what I do. These are things that I would have never gotten into the jobs that I did. I would have never taken the career path that I did. I wouldn't have the friends that I do. So open yourself up when you're thinking about officiating to know that there's way more to it, and that the times that you're getting yelled at are minuscule compared to the times that you're going to enjoy what you're doing, and the times that you're going to see a kid make the greatest catch that they've ever made in their lives and how excited they are, or the kid that gets a base hit for the very first time, or the kid that pitches a perfect game, to get to see that excitement, or the team that wins a Valley championship that's never won one before. And you know that you worked that game and you got to be a part of that history. Take a step back and look at a bigger picture of what officiating can be in your life. I think that would be the biggest piece of advice that
That's so great. Yeah, you get to you've been a witness to so many milestones in people's lives. So we are just thrilled that you joined us. You are fascinating.
Yes, thank you.
I think
Thank you.
we need to make a deal to have her back on after her 50th year of doing this.
Hey, I'm in for it.
We're hoping that we're still doing it too.
Exactly.
I hope so too. I mean, I loved what you guys are doing. I love the concept. Keep doing it, because I think there's a lot of little niches out there that people don't think about that you can be involved in. And this is certainly one of them. And it's such a fluke that I just happened to meet Alana at her fundraiser.
Yeah, thank you, Alana Rizzo. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for thinking of me, Alana.
Yeah.
I know you're over, but I did just quickly, she was teaching a class on scorekeeping, was the fundraiser. And so when she got all done, I said, hey, Alana, you missed one of the codes. And she goes, well, what is that? And I said, EU. And she goes, EU? I don't know what that is. And I said, well, that's when the umpire makes a bad call. So it's an error on the umpire.
On the umpire.
You thought that was the greatest thing I had ever heard.
I will add that.
And so, of course, she brought up Angel Hernandez, which I thought was totally funny.
Oh, yeah.
Boy. And so she's like, well, why don't you call it a UE? And I said, well, if it's an error on the shortstop, it's an E6. So if it's an error on the umpire, it's an EU.
Yes, very true. And Angel Hernandez would have a lot of those marks.
Yeah. Yes. So my claim to fame now is that I got to teach Alana Rizzo something about baseball.
Yeah, there you go. Because that's hard to do. That girl knows her stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
thank you, ladies, so much. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Such great knowledge. All right, Cherie, you can go ahead and hop off, and we're going to go ahead and talk about our next guest. But first of all, Cherie, just, oh my gosh, wealth of knowledge. And
anytime. And if we ever make it to a Giants game, I'll send you an email, let you know we're coming.
Or Petaluma High School volleyball.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, ladies. A pleasure.
All right. Wow.
Bye-bye.
I mean, and she just keeps going. She's learning and doing new jobs all the time. What an inspiration. She makes 60 look darn good.
So inspiring.
I knew that was going to be a cool discussion.
You did. I
had some intuition there. Okay. So next up, we are episode 24, Miss Celeste. And who's our guest?
It's going to be Alana Tab. And she basically owns her own business, Amy. She owns Gold Tree PR. And I met her at Sochi at the Olympics. And she is a cool cat. She was a former Red Bull employee doing a lot of with their marketing and everything with all the Olympic athletes. So she is really fun, but yet she takes care of business, Amy. So we'll learn a lot from her.
I imagine. I love how you always drop I met her at the Olympics. I was at the Olympics here. I was at the Olympics here. Okay, so that sounds totally awesome, educational. I can't wait, and especially with the Olympics going on. So that's going to be very time appropriate. And we just want to remind you all to follow us on Instagram so you can win prizes like swimwear. This one's new from our sponsor, Sunset Vibes. Thank you. Shout out. And giant swag, intention candles, books. We've got it all. Just follow us. Our handle is @GirlGigPodcast.
Yeah. And to top that off, we will select our next winner on Instagram. So make sure you're following us on Instagram and engage with us. And that winner is going to be selected on July 17th. Again, it's at Girl Podcast. And congratulations to Madison. She got her candle. We shipped it out. So hopefully we'll be hearing something from her and posting it.
We have real live human winners. It's true. All right. We hope that you'll continue to join us and all of our guests for their incredible sports gig journeys. I'm sure he was amazing. You can listen to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig on your favorite podcast app. You can subscribe on our YouTube channel. It's free. For Celeste Gehring, I'm Amy G. Until next time.